Mr. CYLeung. Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, for being on this show.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening to you.
Good evening to you. I know you're very busy. Now, before I get on to other questions, there is one big question I need to ask, and this shot came out of the blue, and that is an ally of yours. I suppose now it's a former ally of yours, Mr. Lau Mong Hong. He made some very serious allegations against you, that you made up a story about hiring 3 experts to give you the all clear on your illegal structures at your home, that you had promised him an executive council seat and you broke that promise, and also that you consider the Democrats as your enemy. Now, these are very serious charges, Mr. Chief Executive. And, you know, you have to say something about this, because saying no comment, I don't think people will accept that.
Nothing new. And what he said has been refuted by people who were, for example, at that dinner party. Plus the fact that what he said about my houses on the peak were not true. They were actually properly responded to a couple of months ago in my written statement, which were advertised in the newspapers. So nothing new and nothing true.
So none of this is true at all?
No, not at all, not at all.
Okay. Now, you know, I know you don't want me to ask any more questions about this, because there are other issues. And I know if I ask you any more questions, you're going to say there's nothing new in that question. So it's now accepted by you that what Mr. Lau Mong Hong said is all not true. Okay.
Well, we're rather focused on the policy address.
I know. So now, but then, you know, again, the policy address, a lot of the issues that came out of the policy address, in some ways are connected with that other issue. You've been in office now for 7 months, Mr. Chief Executive. And in those 7 months, you have had a lot of scandals, one after the other, and the one a few days ago was yet another scandal. Some people would say, or are saying, that you are a divisive leader, that you have divided Hong Kong. How would you respond to that?
We have done a lot in the last 7 months. Look at what we have done. We got through Let's Go, and therefore 400,000 elderly in need will receive old age living allowance, $2,200 a month. In April, we launched a couple of months before schedule in August, concessionary bus fare for all elderly. We launched a series of housing-related issues, including introduction of buyer stamp duty. Okay, that may be controversial. Some might even say that's divisive, but we launched it. It helped stabilize the market. We also did a lot on the supply side. In terms of building infrastructure on the neighborhood level, we announced again a few months ago, and just a few months into the new government, the installation of lifts and elevators in about 220 locations to help the frail, the elderly, and the handicapped.
Despite all that, Mr. Chief Executive, people still say that you have been the most divisive leader that they can remember.
We have achieved a lot in the last...
So you won't say you're a divisive leader?
We have achieved a lot in the last 7 months. Society has very different views on the various issues that we need to tackle. For example, there's one body of opinion out there which somehow feels that there shouldn't be any means test for old age living allowance.
And others say, sure.
We can't afford it, and therefore we have to look after the needy first. If you say that's divisive, that may be the nature of the issue. Secondly, we need a new town. We sorely need a new town to provide the large number of housing units which we sorely need.
And you want to have that in the Northern New Territories?
We will have that in Northeast New Territories. And again, there is a body of opinion out there that feels that that's selling Hong Kong out to the mainlanders.
It's not selling Hong Kong out? That's not true?
Not true. And people have different opinions. But we are moving ahead. We're plowing on, and we're achieving.
Okay, now, going back, just one more on this issue. I've had some of your very staunch supporters on this show before, and they also say that there is a trust problem with you, that people don't trust you. Why is that? Do you feel that? Do you have a trust problem?
We'll concentrate on the communication side. We'll enact legislation, we formulate policies, and we communicate properly with the people. And this government, my political team, has been doing our very best. Not just myself, but all my policy secretaries have been out there in the neighborhoods, talking and listening to the people. And this is the ultimate and the most effective way of communicating with the people and building trust. We don't assume that people will give us the trust come what may. We have to earn the trust of the people. This is a new government.
Do you have the trust of the people
we are
now?
Earning the trust of the people by talking and listening to the people. And interestingly, when we're actually out there talking and listening to the people, the focus and the viewpoints of the people are real issues, the issue that we are now tackling in the policy address, namely building a robust economy, tackling poverty issues, aging society issues, the environment, and particularly housing. And so we're doing that. We're building trust with people. We're also forging a partnership with the people.
But do you have the trust of the people in your mind? Do you think you have the trust of the people?
We are building a trust of the
You're building, but do you have it now?
With the people. We don't assume. There's no reason why we should have the trust of the people on day one. We should earn the trust of the people, and that's what we are doing.
Okay. Now, coming on this trust issue, there have been marches where people have said you should resign, that you're not telling the truth, you're a liar, you should resign. Has it ever, Mr. Chief Executive, entered your mind, even for a minute, that you should resign?
No. We are making progress. The team and I...
You never thought about resigning?
We are making very good progress. As I said, many of the pledges in my election manifesto are being delivered, and they are now sort of part of government's work, and they are now part of life in Hong Kong. Old age living allowance, managing down external demand for housing units, making supply of housing as expedient as possible. And we are taking not just long-term measures, but also short and medium-term measures as well.
So 5 years, 4.5 years from now, you'll still be sitting here and I'll also be able to interview you. You'll be here for the long haul.
It's not just that. And I hope when we talk about government and Hong Kong generally in 4.5 years' time, you and I would agree that the government has actually done a lot, and done a lot according to the election manifesto.
So you're going to be here for the full 5 years?
Well, I'm going to be here to deliver on the promises that I made in my manifesto.
That's it. That means you're going to be here for the full 5 years. Now, I want to talk about democracy, because that's one issue I see that's going to come up quite a bit. In your policy speech, you were sharply criticized by the so-called pan-Democrats for saying very few things about democracy. You said we have a lot of time to deal with this, because the direct elections is 2017. So we have time to deal with that. How much time? When do you think you will start consulting the people? We're 2013 now. There's an election in 2016.
Two things. Firstly, it's loud and clear. It's a loud and clear message from the people that the government should tackle other issues first. Housing. Just look at the very good response to government's housing initiatives. The Greenview Villa, which is a subsidized project.
Yes,
for sale.
A lot of people wanted to buy that.
White form applicants want to buy HOS units in the second-hand market. Now, these are pressing issues. When it comes to housing, people don't want to wait for 4 or 5 years. They want solutions, preferably tomorrow, and the government is working very hard on this. As chief executive, I chair meetings on a daily basis with heads of various bureaus and government departments to make sure that land and housing units are available as soon as possible. Now, second thing, we are not taking our eyes off 2017.
You're not?
We're not at all. We're not taking our eyes off this subject of political reform.
Do you support it, Mr. Chief Executive?
Of course I do.
Do you support democracy for Hong Kong?
Of course I do.
You don't hardly speak passionately about it.
I've been working on this since I was Secretary General for the Basic Law Consultative Committee in 1988.
So you don't see the Democrats as your enemies?
We have, not at all. In fact, I've invited, and they don't come every time, I've invited my democratic lawmakers to breakfast, lunches, and dinners, and
they don't turn up,
and other sessions to talk and listen to them. They don't always turn up. And,
but you can say here and now that you don't see them as your enemies.
Not at all. I see them as partners, and I see all lawmakers in Legislative Council as partners. We know how important it is to have a good working relationship between the executive authorities, which is government, and the Legislative Council. And in the last 7 months since I took up this office, I've been attending electrical sessions many times, talking directly to them and listening to them.
But can you
the second thing I want to say about 2017 is that while we are not taking our eyes off this target, we do have time because we have 4 or 5 years before.
But how much time? When will you go to the people? Can you give us a date or a year that you will go to the people and consult them on this?
Well, we will have enough time to consult with the people. We'll have enough time to discuss.
But can you say it's going to be 2014?
We also have time to enact the necessary legislation. I don't think anyone has said that we need a full 4 or 5 years to do this process. And in fact, this is not the first time when we address this question of direct election, universal suffrage for chief executive election. Many of the viewpoints and arguments have been known, as I said, since 1988, when we sat down to draft the basic law. So we need to sort of recap on these issues, probably revisit some of the arguments, but we're not building this from ground zero.
All right, okay. More of Mr. CYLeung soon. Don't go away.